Welcome back. President Trump took Friday's cabinet meeting to Camp David, where he told reporters of a plan to resume military strikes on Iran.
U.S. officials confirming strikes could happen as soon as this weekend if progress isn't made on the diplomatic front.
Madeline Rivera joins us now with the latest. Good morning, Maddie.
Good morning, Charlie. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was blunt about this. She says Iran will continue to pay until they come to the table in what President Trump deems a meaningful way. So the president is leaning towards striking Iran until they capitulate.
We'll be hitting them. We'll be hitting them very hard. And, at some point, they're going to say, we just can't take it anymore.
Of course, the president authorized the new attack plan as he held a cabinet meeting at Camp David yesterday. Per Axios, the president is considering energy and infrastructure facilities as potential targets. Israel could also join in on the attacks for the first time in many weeks, but the president has not made a final decision. And any immediate progress on the diplomatic front could convince him to change his mind. The president, though, has cast Iran as dishonorable to deal with, underscoring his frustrations with the negotiations. Still, he maintains the U.S. has been able to degrade the regime's nuclear, missile, and drone capabilities, even as he admits they still have a stockpile of weapons left.
They have no Navy. It's been obliterated. Their Air Force has been obliterated. They have no planes. Their missiles have been largely, they have some left. They have some, but they have far fewer than they had 4 or 5 months ago.
Iran has remained defiant, and Iranian security officials tell state media they are fully prepared to retaliate against the U.S. and Israel if critical infrastructure are hit. Charlie, Lara, and Griff.
Thank you, Madeline.
Thanks, Maddie.
So let's bring in Behnam Ben Taleblu, Iran Program Senior Director and Senior Fellow for the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. So great to have you on this morning. Thank you. So big picture, where do you think things stand right now between President Trump and Iran?
Well, good morning. We're certainly on the edge of a precipice. The president still signaling his interest in a diplomatic option, but also his frustration with the leadership of the Islamic Republic. And certainly with a regime like this, which is fundamentally anti-American, Islamist, and revolutionary to the core, I really do think there is no way out but through here. This is a regime that believes its survival is more tied to escalation than engagement. And therefore, I think despite this diplomatic offer by the president, we're more likely to see military action in the coming weeks.
Well, the president obviously is the unique person for this moment, and he also has a unique Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who sits down with me tonight at 9 p.m. for an exclusive interview. Listen to what he had to say about the Iranian regime.
I don't think the Iranian regime has ever faced a president like President Trump, which is someone that actually takes action. You know, they got used to for 20 or 30 years, not just the U.S., but the broader world, allowing them to get away with things like lying, breaking deals, tricking people into agreements and so forth.
So is this the moment that we could potentially see something positive happen, obviously not just for America in the Middle East, but the entire world because of this president in the White House, do you think?
Well, certainly, Laura, I will be tuning in to watch that very important interview as well. I don't think that the Islamic Republic has ever faced an administration like this and a president like this. The challenge is, you know, we are quite loud here in the United States in terms of markets, in terms of media, about the things that actually, unfortunately, still constrain this president. And that is what is giving the Islamic Republic the edge right now. They cannot politically beat us. They cannot militarily out-escalate us. But there are 4 M's to be aware of that are highly public. One is munitions, the interceptor crisis. The second is media, the fact that most of the media opposes the president and has unfortunately been, not covering the war accurately. The third is markets, and particularly oil markets. And the last one is the political element, midterms. And that's why the Islamic Republic, despite being weaker, is still escalating, because they're trying to have those 4 M's constrain this president, even though historically he has been the only one willing to pull the trigger against this regime.
Well, that's exactly the point, Behnam, is that this is the first president in an election year willing to stand up to Iran while also demonstrating remarkable patience, keeping the door open for negotiations. And it seems the fundamental problem is determining who is in charge. When you look at Iran's leadership and who's left right now, obviously Mojtaba Khamenei is the supreme leader. But running the IRGC is Brigadier General Ahmad Vahidi. So we see at the negotiating table the foreign minister, Arachi, and the parliament speaker, Gallup, but it is clearly Ahmad Vahidi who is continuing to launch missiles at Jordan, at Saudi Arabia, at Kuwait, and not stopping down. It's almost like these two don't even talk, or they're just letting Vahidi continue. And it's worth historically noting, as I know you know well, is that Vahidi was the first commander of the Quds Force under the previous leader, Ali Khamenei. And now he is simply continuing to do exactly what Iran has always done, which is lie and continue to attack. Assess that for us. Lay that out for us. What's the play here?
You know, I'm really glad that you mentioned some of the factionalism that exists in the Islamic Republic. But despite that factionalism, there is a through line through this leadership. And that through line is these are men mostly in their 50s and 60s, who are all Islamists, who are all supporters of this regime despite their different political differences. And their formative moment in life was the Iran-Iraq War, the 1980 to 1988 Iran-Iraq War. That was the longest conventional war of the 20th century. So all these guys were formed by the same experience, and they've come out of it somewhat differently, but they're formed by that same initial major war in the Middle East. And that's why, despite being a quote-unquote chief diplomat, someone like Arakchi, for example, is a veteran of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the same corps that now Ahmad Vahidi leads. So this is a highly militarized regime. And if we're going to look at a through line through these guys, the one legacy of the former supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, is that he has institutionalized that terror organization's dominance across every single organ of that country: political, security, military, economic, you name it. So it is an IRGC military-led regime in the past and present, and as long as there's an Islamic Republic, it will be in the future.
Such a great insight. Great insight. Behnam Ben Taleblu, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Behnam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.